Welcome to Diritto Digitale, the podcast where we discuss about innovation and law and how they intersect. I'm your host, Giulio Coraggio, and data and technology lawyer at the law firm DLA Piper. Today, we're going to have a special edition of our podcast dedicated to the DLA Piper's Gambling Laws of the World podcast. We're going to reproduce this episode. And in particular, this is an episode where we do a deep dive on the Italian and Dutch gambling law markets. We hope you're going to enjoy it. So let's begin. Hello everyone, this is the podcast Gambling Laws of the World. I'm Giulio Coraggio, a gambling lawyer at the global law firm DLA Piper, where I coordinate our gambling sector. I'm really happy to have here as our guest Richard van Schaik. He's a partner of our Amsterdam office and is a gambling expert on Dutch law, and Vincenzo Giuffrè that works in my team and is a senior lawyer in our gambling group. And both Richard and Vincenzo will cover very hot topics on Dutch and Italian gambling laws that are at the core of the discussions of last weeks. So let's start from Vincenzo. Vincenzo, we all heard about the ongoing process for the award of new online gambling licenses in Italy. Can you just walk us through how this process is unfolding, the key timelines involved, and what operators should be most aware of in this phase?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Giulio, for the introduction. Italy has long been one of the most structured and regulated gaming markets in Europe. Now, with the full liberalization of sports betting and the introduction of new sports betting regulation, the market is reaching its full potential. These changes complete an already diverse offering that includes casino games, slots, poker, bingo, betting exchange, horse betting, and betting on virtual events. But that's not at all, because including in the new tender, there will be a possibility to offer esports and fantasy game. The deadline for the application process will take place between March 31, 2025 until May 30, 2025. There will be an unlimited number of licenses available at a fixed price of 7 million for a 9-year license. But companies should start preparing now. This is because for those looking to enter in the markets, there are several key requirements to keep in mind. One of the first step is obtaining the relevant digital identification that for the director appointed within the company, but also operators must submit a comprehensive technical report that details IT infrastructure, environmental impact, and human resources policies. This is a critical document that demonstrates the operator liability to manage a secure, responsible, and sustainable gaming platform. That's why this kind of reports should be appraised by independent third parties. Another major focus of the Italian regulation will be the responsible gaming, and operators must implement strict policies that protect players, promote the self-exclusion tools, and ensure that gaming remains an entertainment activity. Finally, one of the most another relevant document will be the investment plan. So the new license applicants shall draft this document describing which are the investments that they are going to do in the next 2 years when the license will start.
Okay. Thank you, Vincenzo. Richard, tuning to the Dutch market, we have seen growing talk about the potential player disputes and even class actions against operators that provide services without a local license. From your perspective, what are the main legal grounds fueling these disputes, and how serious is the risk for operators?
Thanks, Giulio. In all honesty, I think very serious and not without a reason. In my view, the two main drivers for this. One is the unlicensed gambling offering before 1st of October 2021. And the second driver is the class action regime in the Netherlands in general. If okay with you, I'll discuss both of them and see how it comes together to those concerns. First, the unlicensed gambling offering before 1st of October 2021. As you know, after many years, finally on the 1st of April 2021, the Dutch online gambling market finally opened up, and parties were allowed to apply for a license that went into force as of 1st of October 2021. Before 1st of October 2021, online gambling offering without a license was prohibited, and as no license were granted, wasn't allowed to get a license, the result was effectively that online gambling offering was formally prohibited. Yet, despite this, online gambling was offered in the Netherlands by many operators, especially since the late 90s. And to give you an idea, estimation that in 2018, there were around 1.9 million active online players in the Netherlands.
Wow.
However, since the opening of the market in 2021, court cases have been initiated and filed against online gambling providers that offered their services prior to the 1st of October 2021, when the licensing regime opened. In total, there have been now around 50 court cases. And these cases have one thing in common. It's about claims that argue either that online gambling agreements they entered into with operators without a license, those agreements should be declared null and void. That's one aspect. Or gambling operators violated their duty of care obligations. Those are the two main issues raised there. And in both scenarios, claimants ask for restitution of their losses. As I said, these court cases started already a few years ago, and there are around 50 now. And the thing is that the lower courts have issued their contradictory judgments. So most of them were in favor of the claimants, but not all of them. And earlier this year, on 22nd of January this year, in two different cases against two different operators, two different district courts in the Netherlands asked judicial questions to the Dutch Supreme Court, all in relation to this null and void. So main questions were are the online gambling agreements without license null and void? That's of course the main question. If so, what are the consequences? Is it also relevant whether an operator complied with the priority criteria set by the Dutch gambling authorities at the time? And one of the questions also, is it relevant whether players played against each other, for example, online poker, or against the operator? Estimation of these really important questions that they will come in Q3 this year. Meanwhile, most of the pending court cases have been put on hold, awaiting answers by the Dutch Supreme Court. But at the same time, what we see is that several law firms are representing claim foundations, which on their turn are supported by financial funders, preparing for class and mass action, pending the outcome of the Supreme Court decision. And that brings me to the second driver. So the first driver of those class action is the main question: are gambling operations before online gambling operations can be declared null and void if they were offered before 2021? And the second main driver of this potential class action is the really attractiveness or the appeal to start class actions in the Netherlands in the first place. It is very, very appealing to initiate class actions in the Netherlands, and they can be very rewarding. Just briefly, how does it work in the Netherlands? Basically, what you need is a foundation that litigates on behalf of a defined group of people that has similar interests. In this case, for example, all Dutch players, Dutch individuals who concluded online gambling agreements prior to 1st of October 2021. And secondly, that foundation should be representative or represented group, but it does not require explicit and upfront consent from the individual represented parties. And the third layer here is that the class action, it's in the Netherlands what we call the WAMCA regime. The class action is binding on all represented Dutch domiciled parties unless they actively opted out. So that means that a claim foundation that successfully litigates can obtain, in this case, a positive decision on behalf of around 1.9 million players, unless they opted out. Mm-hmm. So this is a very attractive, lucrative business model. In fact, it has become a business model to start litigations in the Netherlands. To give you an idea, litigation services are being offered to gamblers against around 30 to 37% success fees for those foundations. So, yes, getting back to your question, it's very serious at the moment.
It has become a new business for law firms and even a new source of income for players. But going back to Vincenzo on the Italian market, you mentioned about the ongoing tender, and one of the objections that is more commonly raised for new entrants in the market is around the gambling advertising ban. However, lately there is a proposal to remove or at least reduce the impact of the gambling advertising ban, which would have a really serious impact on operators and especially for new entrants in the market. Can you just give us a snapshot of what's going on and what operators should expect?
Yeah, sure. First of all, it is a proposal to remove part of this Italian gambling advertising ban, but a proposal that had been approved just yesterday at the Italian Senate, and now considering the approval of the relevant commission, now is going to be also contained in a sort of draft bill that should modify or at least amend the provision affecting the Italian gambling advertising ban. As far as the rumors, now the provision will affect the sponsorship deal, and that's why the government is now actively discussing lifting this restriction. There are several reasons behind this proposal. One of the main arguments is that it will create a fair market for licensed operators, because right now legal operators struggle to compete with the unlicensed ones that can advertise freely through digital channels. Removing the ban, at least for the sponsorship, could help redirect players toward the regulated platform. If the proposal moves forward, it would have a major impact on licensed operators, or at least towards those operators who are going to apply to the tender, will join the tender. It will mean the ability to promote their brands within the jerseys, within TV advertisements, and also it is the second reason why the Italian gambling advertising ban was criticized, because there was like a competitive advantages, for example, by non-Italian football teams or in general sports teams that could have their jerseys sponsored by licensed gambling operators, while the Italian ones cannot, but at the same time the Italian audience can access to games, football matches, and in general television, so where these advertisements were placed. So these are the discussion behind this new proposal on the Italian gambling advertising ban.
Yeah, it's super interesting, and honestly, I do see it as a sort of happy ending in a situation where, as you unfolded, the ban has created more misbehaviors that are negatively affecting players and as well as operators, while having a regulated advertising regime is in the interest of both consumers and operators. Richard, you mentioned a scenario that is quite scary for operators. So basically, you see in practice a surge of class actions, but the big question at the moment is how should operators prepare themselves for both a legal and reputational dispute? Should they do anything now, or should they just hope that they are not the victims of these actions?
Yeah, they should, because what we see is that also those claim foundations, they're already heavily preparing. As I said earlier to you, it has become like a business model litigation in gambling industry in the Netherlands. And what we see now, currently, there are around 6 claim foundations and law firms teaming up and to actively book build their case. So basically, what we see them doing is, well, first of all, collecting mandates from individual gamblers. They're gathering support to ensure financial profitability of their investments. Going to funders to start those actions, legal actions, and what they try to do, and that comes to the first one. Comes to the first point. They try to become the lead claimant, the exclusive representative in a class action. So what they also do at the moment is reaching out proactively, quite often, in my view, both to the press. And what they also try to do is influence stakeholders such as the gambling authority, politicians, but even, for example, data protection authorities. And even if there were to be a negative outcome in the Supreme Court case, which I talked about earlier, when the Supreme Court wouldn't declare the agreements null and void, it's very likely that those claim foundations also will start class or mass actions in relation to alleged violation of duty of care obligations. So definitely, what we see on one hand is that the claim foundations are very heavily preparing for class and/or mass action. Back to your question, what can operators do? Should they just await the outcome of the High Court, a Supreme Court decision? No, absolutely not. What we see operators do, and what we help them already with, is on the one hand, of course, monitoring the current class action landscape and initiatives with those claim foundations. What are they doing? But what they can also do is what they should do is making sure that they already have ready all the players' data available and that they manage this. What we also see operators doing is determining whether or not they would like to influence the outcome of the Supreme Court case, and for example, by submitting remarks or engaging legal experts. Some decide to do, others decide not to. And what we also advise is learn from experiences abroad. And what we see is that class action or mass actions are never standalone. It's always multi-jurisdictional, and this will come, and we'll discuss this later in another podcast. But for example, we work closely with our colleagues in Germany and Austria, where many actions already came, and we try to learn from them, to see, okay, in similar cases, what happened there, what are the tactics? Because what we see is that also the claim foundations, they speak to each other, so also the operators should speak to each other and also learn from experiences in, well, this particular case in Austria and Germany. Another topic they can prepare on, what we see is that the claim foundations massively now reach out to operators with DSARs, data subject access requests, based on GDPR. So how to deal with those DSARs at a large scale, that's also one of the things that currently should be considered and being dealt with. One or two other issues or topics they could already start doing now is of course, how to deal with PR and lobbying. Do we do it jointly with other operators? Do we do it standalone? And the last one is also protecting the corporate veil. I think that's also a really important one from a larger perspective. So yeah, operators can and should already start act now, because you can't wait till just that the court decision will come, because for sure the claim foundations are preparing right now, and the moment the Supreme Court decision comes, they will immediately start take action for sure.
Yeah, that's a good, very good point, and it's good to mention that at DLA Piper we have a massive litigation team that is already assisting clients in many jurisdictions, including Austria, Germany, Italy, and Spain, and with the new wave of disputes in the Netherlands. These are either serial claims, repetitive claims that are quite similar one to the other, or class actions. In both cases, we have large teams that have a methodology that has been consolidating over the years in order to properly deal with them in an efficient manner. We're already doing it for many gambling clients, and as well as clients in other sectors, and it resulted to be very efficient and useful for clients. Vincenzo, just to finish off on Italy, what is your outlook of the market? Italy is the second largest gambling market in Europe after the UK. We have this combination of new licenses as well as the potential lift of the gambling advertising ban. What do you expect in the coming months?
Yeah, as you said, Giulio, it is true. Italy is the biggest market in Europe and the second biggest if we consider UK. So yes, but in Italy, the market has been driven by strong online activity. Recently, what we have seen in recent years, especially after COVID, is that the people that used to play offline moved to online. And so this new growth that appears to be like challenges, in reality, there are clear opportunities for international players. This is because the licensing process will open the markets to new entrants, potentially driving innovation, competition. And what we have seen in the market now, but maybe also in the close future, is that the international companies are looking to invest in Italy by means of collaboration, but also acquisition of those that we call, they are Italian-based companies, but in Italy they are mostly known as points of sale, generally referred in Italy as PVR. So this sort of collaboration between international companies and the Italian ones can create a better environmental for both consumers and opportunities. Again, if the advertising restrictions are eased, operators will have a better chance to engage with customers and strengthen their brand presence in Italy. And also because of the new regulatory requirements in technological advancements, operators can use artificial intelligence, can use personalized gaming experience in terms of responsible gambling, and this can present like a major opportunities for operators to enhance customer engagement, but also retention, which we've understood it is the most important element that the Italian players look at, the retention. So yeah, generally speaking, Italian gambling market is now at an important turning point. Operators which are now present, but also those who are looking to join the market need to stay informed, adapt the regulatory changes, but also position themselves strategically in a combination between online and offline activities. The omni-channel is now the key requirement in Italy.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Same question to you, Richard. What is your outlook on the Dutch online gambling market? Do you see additional regulatory changes, enforcement measures? What should the operators expect in the coming months?
Well, I mean, in all honesty, the outlook now is completely different than the outlook when the market opened, when everything was very positive and everyone was very cheering, and finally the market could opened up. But now, almost 4 years, 3.5 years later, it doesn't look so positive anymore, and not so much to do with the regulator taking enforcement action, because yes, they do every now and then, but that's most of the time in pretty obvious case is when an operator violated advertising rules or the crux rules or otherwise. So nothing really, no strange behavior there to say. But what are the dark clouds above the Dutch markets is, on one hand, the class mass action, what we just discussed, and on the other hand, regulatory rules that have been introduced after the opening of the market that definitely do impact the market and also the forecast. Prohibition of advertising is one of them. High taxation, which got introduced and will even go up, is likely to be expected. So those, especially those two drivers, prohibition of advertising and high taxations, will lead, in my view, eventually to operators pulling out on one hand, but also, and I think that's even more concerning, players moving away and going back to the unlicensed operators again, as a result of which the canalization will drop, and they will go to illegal offering. The purpose was 80% for the market to be canalized, and for sure, and we already see market trends that will go down. So the whole purpose of one of the main drivers of opening the market in the first place, one of those goals, getting canalization, will drop down because of regulatory measures introduced by the government.
Yeah. Well, so let's say the future is a bit bumpy, at least in in the Netherlands. Well, I would say that probably we passed the most complicated period for the Italian online gambling market. It seems that now regulators are adopting a more approachable attitude towards the gambling sector, while when the left wing was in power, it was just the opposite. This is the end of this episode of Gambling Laws of the World. We picked this name for our podcast because Gambling Laws of the World is also the guide that Daily Piper published, where he provides snippets of the gambling laws in and the hottest topics around gambling laws in all the major jurisdictions worldwide. You can find it freely on dailypaper.com. This is the first episode of a series of episodes where we're gonna cover always two jurisdictions, just to give you a better understanding of where the gambling market is heading. So just stay tuned and continue following us. We will come back to you with a new episode very soon. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I thank Richard and Vincenzo for their contributions, and I thank you all for listening to us.